Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of the day for Friday, March 26th, 2021, and we have some major updates on AMC and GME. Watch until the end. We are going to do this technical analysis because you probably are too ape and you don't want to, so I will do it for you. The main point of this is to show you exactly where AMC and GME were going and exactly how it did not get there. And if you guys appreciate this video, including the options chain that we're going to cover in just a second, drop a like in this video. Try to get it up to, let's say, 1,300. Let's try to get this video up to 1,300 likes, because I would really appreciate that. And for the live stream, let's try to get this video up to 2,300 likes. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys were following GME pre-market, we were watching it struggle between two main levels of resistance and support. Now, actually, I'm going a little too far. Okay, so right here is where it was struggling between 180 and 187. Now it has closed at 180 flat. We made a bet with a fellow Mo Monkey, and I was 1 penny off. I bet $180 as my closing prediction, but then I decided, you know, that's a little bit too far-fetched. I wanted to add a penny on there, and I wanted to tell you exactly why I was a penny off, because most importantly, I want to be able to show you that the market is not so much of an enigmatic beast as you might think. Right here, we see that this stock was trading just hovering right below that resistance level. Usually when that happens, the MACD is going to start building up because that momentum is just begging to be let out of this resistance here. Now, if you guys have watched the show before, support and resistances are just price points that with the market as a macro beast have decided whether or not a stock is worth more than or less than. A resistance is a level that everyone kind of said, okay, I guess the stock isn't worth as much as this. This is usually preceded and followed by a run-up and then a rejection. The other side is a support, the price where everyone basically agrees, yeah, it can't be worth less than this price. So it usually is preceded by a dip and then a correction. That's the most important piece to understand about supports and resistances. Also understand that they can reverse. So support can become a resistance and vice versa. And that's important because, once again, it's begging the question, well, last week or maybe yesterday, we were trying to get past this price. Why can't we get past this price again if we were successful in last week or vice versa, right? So one of the first things that you'll notice is that breaking past 187, we were able to get to a high of 209 pre-market. Right, so GameStop was flying high in the pre-market. This was followed by a corrective wave here that dropped for a couple minutes or hours of consolidation, dropping it eventually up to the VWAP line. Now, the most important thing to understand about the volumetric weighted average price is that it gets wonky after hours because the volume is completely different with a completely different set of buyers and sellers. Right, you might not have access to after hours, but if you did get your 2 free stocks down below with the WeBull link, you would have access to the after hours right here. One of the other things that you'll note is that this stock had a head and shoulders pattern right here, drawing and the exact same support twice. Quanta set, I will talk about your super in just a second. Hitting that support twice means that this is a bullish sign that people are willing to be able to drop down to the same support and then drop down to the same support again. This is actually supported 3 times. Now, at that point in time, we saw the continuation of a corrective wave right before market open, and that would have been exactly when I would have predicted the MACD was going to rise above the signal line. If you jumped on right as this dip lowered to 195, you would have started to ride it all the way up to a final rise of 207. Yesterday, I mentioned that paper hands are likely going to be in the market open. So when they dipped down to 2 levels of support, 195 to 187, hitting a low of 185, that is when we started building this channel upward, right? This is a 1, 2, 3 part impulse wave hitting 219 and then dropping back down, not nearly as low as it started. So it's dropped down to $200 and was supported there. That was the channel that I built here in teal. You notice that this would be the most bullish opportunity to try and reach 250, because if we look over here at the options chain, we notice that 250 had $2 million of call options, and leading up to it, there were about 4 4.5 to 7 million calls from 200 to 250. That would have been the opportunity for us to start sliding up with delta hedging from the institutions, because likely these calls are not covered. They have not bought these prices because GameStop has not been at these prices for a couple of days. The most important piece of the puzzle here is that GameStop had an upwards channel, maybe not as bullish as the one that I drew, but it definitely had an opportunity there. Unfortunately, as it started to have this corrective wave, it could not stop falling through these support levels here. None of these support levels seem to have been able to keep GameStop aloft, and when it passed through the VWAP, that was when we noticed that the MACD here on the minute chart was basically riding in exact tandem to that signal line. So there we had 180 here. One of the most important things to note is that when we dropped down to 180 at 18, that support level ends up being the resistance level for the rest of the day. When we started trading above here, you would have known that there was going to be a little bit of turbulence on the way here. So one of the things that we are focusing upon is that OBV, and that allows us to have a good sense of whether or not the stock is trading based on volume, based on whether or not the volume reflects these changes in the prices. One of the first things that you'll notice is if this was based on volume here, we would have had a lot closer of the stock to the VWAP. The VWAP continues to elude the GameStop price, even stopping as far as saying that the exponential moving average ends up being the cap on the GameStop price here, right? We get over to 195, but nowhere near the VWAP, just a gut check of how much volume should move the price of the stock. If it trades underneath the VWAP all day, that is a sign that we are seeing likely some manipulation that is not volume driven. In that sense, we started this corrective wave over at 190 or so, and we saw a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 part corrective wave, dropping us down to our low of 163.26 for the day, and that allowed us to start oscillating between these two tightly knit resistance levels. Two resistance levels very close together allows us to consolidate faster and gives us the momentum that we need to be able to boost out, and at the same time that predicted was able to boost us out pretty quickly. That started us on this brand new track between 171 and 180, which leads me finally back to my prediction, right? At this point, when I saw that this was a potential impulse wave that stopped short, I knew that each subwave was less than $5. So right here, the subwave is from 172 to 177. So that $5 subwave, that was $5 subwave that ended up not pushing past 180. I knew then that we would need another impulse wave by the last 10 minutes to push above 180 because of this solid resistance level here. I knew that that was going to be hard, but I didn't want to bet against the 3 million here. There are at 180, 2 million, and 175, 3 million. So a total of $5 million worth of calls here at between 175 and 180. So right here, we wanted to bet in favor of GameStop pushing above 180. So I wanted to make sure that I was nuanced in my guess. 180.01 in homage to the day that AMC also closed above 801. And as of right now, WeBull, if it does asynchronously correct, we do have 3 different prices right now of the final closing price from TD Ameritrade, from eToro, but there it is, as we speak, closed at 181 instead. WeBull was showing 180 for the longest time, and now it has finally corrected itself. So 181 means that all of these $5 million of calls end up in the money. Micah Yang is back here. I will cover Micah Yang in just a second. AMC, on the other hand, now there was this descending channel here of descending resistances, but also descending supports. That one of the main problems with this is that this was starting to end up showing us a bearish pennant. One of the one of the easiest ways to see one of this bearish tendency is the exact same or roughly the same levels of support, but a descending level of resistance. Further and further, this is a bearish sign overall, and that did start to dip us lower to $10 as expected. Once it started oscillating between these two, it essentially ended up making a run for a close call at 1046. Now 1046 and 1037 are very, very close resistances to each other, which is why I mapped out these resistance and supports levels earlier, like a few weeks ago earlier, because AMC has yet to return to this level for a couple of, maybe a week and a half roughly. It was resisted at that level, dropped below its partner resistance here at 1036, and could not seem to rise above it for the rest of the day. And that is almost exactly where it ended, right here at this slightly lower level of resistance at 1032. It ended the day right here at 1024 and started to rebound, but could not sustain that rebound all the way into after hours. For Monday, I would imagine that it is ultimately going to depend largely on the options chain here, right? Because we are still crossing our fingers for the gamma squeeze leading us up to the mixed squeeze, the margin call squeeze, and then finally the mother of all short squeezes, which we are still crossing our fingers for. And the main point of this option call here is to try and get these $250 calls in the money. So I would imagine that in the beginning of Monday's market, we're going to see a major sell-off on GME's side. In the aftermarket, we saw that there was a momentary brief bullish push all the way up to 190 for a brief second. Either that or that was a WeBull glitch. So one of the most important things to recognize is that 187 and 195 are the two resistance levels that GameStop would have to push past in the after hours or the pre-market on Monday. If more news comes out about the NSCC 801 rule, that might be the catalyst that we need, and that's the one that we've been talking about as the mother of all short squeeze catalysts. If 801 gets implemented sometime next week, that is going to push GameStop over the $250 gamma ramp here, and over the weekend I'm imagining that people are going to start contemplating heavily about extra even greater near in the money or far out of the money gamma ramps. The further that we can start building this ramp between 215 to 250, the easier that process is going to go for the rest of the week. Let's look at AMC briefly. Okay, for AMC, we are looking at $15, kind of representing the $250 gamma wall here. So there is a ramp up to $15, but nothing supporting it between $10 and $15. If AMC wants to be able to push past these two levels of resistance to be above 1050, then it needs to push past this $4 million call, so a ramp to be able to push to the less than $1 million worth of calls over at $11. If it does get there by Monday, then we should be able to see more optimism here and leading up to $15. I would firmly place, if this gamma ramp starts to get scaffolded and built out, both of these stocks near the near that range, $15 midweek for AMC, and for GME I'm looking at $250 midweek. That is all to say, if the hedge funds aren't pulling out the final tricks, which if you guys haven't seen those videos yet about hedge fund last tricks, you should go check that out as well. Finally, I would like to say thank you for making yourself available to be educated, right? To put out no stops at learning the financial techniques that necessary to be able to interpret what happened to these two exemplary stocks right here, right? These are examples of what you should be looking at when you go through the technical analyses yourself. Once more, with feeling, thank you guys for hitting that subscribe button, getting us up to 75,000 perhaps over this weekend, and we will see you at the 100K subscriber special. drop some comments down below if you have an idea of what that should be. We're still taking thoughts, and hope you guys come tomorrow, because we are going to have a celebrity join the show. It's going to be really exciting, and she is going to talk about what it's like to be in the White House, talking about exactly what kind of work she did in the cabinet, and finally being able to give us a sense of what the SEC is going to endeavor to try and change the course of the hedge funds being able to do whatever they want, essentially. Thank you to the Moon Platoon, the Meatball, the Space Legend tier, and the Gorillionaire tier. I'm finally going to update this later on this weekend, so if you guys don't see your name on there quite yet, it's because you didn't press the join button next to the subscribe button or the Patreon link in the description quite yet, or I just haven't updated this list quite yet, so we will see you in the money shortly. Have a good weekend.